Alrighty, so now what we're going to do is we are going to basically sculpt this. So we want to make sure you're in the sculpting. Then what we want to do is right now we're actually in object mode, which is not particularly helpful. So you actually have to switch this to, you got to select it first, switch it to sculpt mode. And then you'll see all of our sculpting tools available. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead just so you can see how this works. I'm going to select the regular sculpt draw brush. These all have hotkeys too. If you hover over them, it'll tell you what they are. Some of them don't work though. Like they'll say it's a hotkey and then it doesn't actually do that. But what I want to do is down over here where it says Dynotopo, you want to turn that on. And what that's going to allow us to do is that as we sculpt, I'll turn it off first so you can see how this works. So normally, let me go ahead. I'm going to put the wireframe on here. Normally, as you sculpt, it just pulls out, right? And we have a decent amount of resolution here, so you can kind of see that's what it does, okay? But if we have Dynotopo on, what you're going to see that it does is it actually creates geometry as you sculpt. So if you look, it's creating more geometry as we go. And the reason why this is particularly useful is that if I turn this off, let's say, let's say I wanted to have this guy have horns, right? Well, as it currently stands, if I were not to use that, okay, and we start trying to sculpt out horns, what you're going to notice is eventually it's going to run out of geometry. And then once we try to do anything, it just gets really faceted and there's just not enough geometry in there because we're running off of what was already there. Now, he's pretty dense, so we get pretty farther than you normally would expect to. But if instead I use the Dynotopo, and there's subsettings of this as well, just so you're aware, detail size and stuff. So that's the size that it's going to be sculpting at. If I use this, so you can see how it's not as dense. If I want to make it denser, I can just change the detail size here. So let's try doing 5, for instance. And now, see how it's a little bit more dense. But now, as I go farther out, I can do whatever I want, and it's making the geometry for me as I go, as opposed to stretching it out here. And that's the real big difference, right? And I could even sculpt on this afterwards with that. And that just allows me to basically make fixes and such, okay? What I highly suggest, though, is that when you go to do the sculpting on this, I would try to match it to what you already have. So, 5 is actually okay for mine. I think the other one was a little bit too little. So we'll just go like this. And then what I can do is if I hold shift, that is smooth. And I can kind of smooth out a lot of these like bad details and such to try and clean that up. Right? Some things that were like this beak, for instance. All right. All right. So I'm just going to hold shift. And I'm just going to smooth this all out. Right? Now you got to be careful. If I do it here, I'm going to lose my detail. Right? So if you have a tablet, that's definitely a lot more beneficial. So let's just say I'm just going to work on this beak because that's just something. So let's say I wanted this to be a little more defined, a little bit cleaner, right? So what I can do is I can use this. Again, if I drag across, you'll see it's going to sculpt. But I need to go inwards. So if I hold control, it actually does the opposite. It goes inwards instead, all right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the fall off here, and we're gonna do, instead of doing smooth, I'm gonna actually, you know what, they actually have a crease. I was gonna switch it by doing it that way. Where is crease? Right here. I'm gonna use crease. So they have different ones up here. I'm just gonna use crease, and I'm just gonna draw a line here to create a crease, and you can see it's much more defined. Okay, I'm just gonna smooth this out in here. Just gonna hold shift. I'm gonna go back to a regular sculpt, and then F is the brush size. Okay, there's also the strength here, and then shift F. See, it's not really. Do I have to click? No. What is going on? All right, F. Okay, shift F. There it goes. Jeez. Okay, I think because I wasn't clicked in it or something. That will be the strength. right? So I'm just going to lower that a little bit. And then I can just brush this around to kind of further, just kind of further define this nostril. And I can kind of sculpt this across as well, right? Right, so I'm just going to go like this. And then it's always a good idea to just kind of smooth out your strokes afterwards. This would be a little bit better if it was maybe moved around a little. So let's see if we can find the grab. And then I'm just going to have to make that a little bit bigger. And I'm just going to push this, and we're just going to pull that. And I just want it to be not so round. Right, so I can push things around as well. Maybe just in general, this beak could be a little bit stronger. So I'm just going to, it feels a little bit too uneven. So I'm just going to go like this to try and make it more even that way. Maybe we can make him a little more jolly because he looks pretty upset. Smooth that out a little bit. Okay. And you could just go through and basically apply those same sort of things throughout. So like, for instance, if I grab this one, which is snake hook, it's kind of like grab. But what this actually does is it would actually do the horn thing a little bit better. So watch it. As I grab it, it draws out. So if you need to do stuff like that, you can do that as well. All right. I'm just going to undo those. Hopefully it'll undo at some point. There we go. Okay. So there are a bunch of options here. Mostly what you're going to need are really just going to be this draw and crease, which is really just a kind of a specialized, although it actually kind of does a pinch as well at the same time. And probably grab, maybe a little bit of snake hook. Most of the other ones are not as, like, fill could be useful too. So fill will allow you to, if you have, like, let's say you have an accidental crease where you didn't want something. Let's say this was too thick. If I use fill, what that's going to do is it actually fills in any cavities. So you might find that helpful. Okay. So, but I would just go through and try to smooth things out. There's also polish or something similar. Flatten, that'll work. So you can see I have this little thing here, so I can just use that flatten to get rid of that nublet, that smooth it out. So if you have little nublets, you can just use the flatten to quickly flatten them out. And that will flatten out those errors, right? So there's one right here. Just click on it, and then I'm just going to smooth it afterwards by holding Shift. Click on it, hold Shift to smooth. Click on it, hold Shift to smooth, right? And some of them we might be able to just straight up smooth out. It kind of depends on whether it'll allow you or not. Like that one was pretty bad, so I had to do that. But be aware, obviously, it is going to kind of mess up some of the stuff there. All right, so yeah, from here basically you would just go through and more or less clean it up using those various Dynotopo and these various brushes. Okay, that should get you most of the way. In the next video, what I'll do is I will show you how to basically create a retopologized one. I would mostly try to make fixes and make big changes that you need to, but maybe don't get carried away with detail work, because I'll show you in the next one. You'll notice when I try to do details in this format, like let's say with the crease here, it's a little slow. See how it's kind of really slow? And even if I use like just a regular, even if I use a regular brush, there's a little bit of a delay, right? See how it's a little delayed. So that's because it's having to do the Dynotopo while we do it, and it's a very dense model. So we're gonna try retopologizing this, and you're gonna lose a bit of detail. But the results, you'll be able to sculpt on a little bit better.